The call came late, shattering the mundane quiet of my night. Not her usual cheerful rambling, but a sound I'd never heard from her before. Raw, broken sobs. Then 4 whispered words that hit me harder than a freight train. I have no one else. In that instant, years of unrequited feelings and steadfast friendship collided with a catastrophic grief that would irrevocably change both our lives. Welcome to Hidden Love Stories. Today, we explore a narrative born from profound tragedy, where the steadfast loyalty of a best friend becomes an unexpected lifeline, and love, long dormant or perhaps unseen, finds its way through the deepest sorrow. Can the most devastating losses sometimes clear the path for the most profound connections? If you've ever witnessed the strength of a bond tested by grief, share your thoughts with us. Your subscription and likes help us continue to explore these intricate, true-to-life narratives. My name's Ethan. I'm 24, and I live in a small one-bedroom apartment just outside of Portland. Nothing fancy. Peeling paint in the bathroom, a fridge that hums too loud, a couch I snagged secondhand off Facebook Marketplace. But it's mine. I work as a delivery guy for a local courier service. Packages, groceries, the occasional late-night restaurant run. I moved out from my parents' place about a year ago, trying to carve out life on my own terms. I don't have it all figured out, but I'm doing okay. Friends, a job, my trusty scooter, and weekends to just breathe. Life's simple, and mostly, I like it that way. That night started like any other. I was home, sprawled on the couch in sweats, mindlessly scrolling TikTok, half a burrito on the coffee table, the TV playing some background noise I wasn't really watching. It was late, maybe 10:30, and I was just about to call it a night when my phone buzzed. It was Olivia. Now, Olivia and we go way back. We met during college orientation, ended up sitting next to each other in Intro to Psych, and just never really drifted apart after that. For years, we were inseparable, best friends. Daily texts, stupid memes, late-night coffee runs at weird hours. I liked her, more than liked her, if I'm being brutally honest with myself. There was a definite period where I wanted more, desperately so, but she never quite saw me in that light. I was the safe guy, the reliable one, the shoulder she cried on after another messy breakup. And yeah, it stung sometimes, more than sometimes. But eventually, I told myself I got over it, or at least I learned to live with the ache. Anyway, that night, when her name lit up my phone, a part of me almost didn't answer. I figured she was maybe bored, a little drunk, or most likely wanted to vent about yet another guy who hadn't treated her right. But when I picked up, it wasn't her usual bright, slightly chaotic voice. All I heard was crying. Heavy, broken, gut-wrenching sobs. She couldn't even get a word out at first, just these ragged gasps for air. I sat bolt upright on the couch, my own heart suddenly racing. "Olivia, what's wrong? Hey, what's going on?" More sobbing. Then finally, her voice, so small and shattered it was barely a whisper. "Ethan, please, can you come over?" That was it. No explanation. No details. Just raw need. "Yeah, Olivia, I'm coming right now." I threw on my hoodie, grabbed my keys, and practically flew out the door. My scooter was parked outside, still warm from my earlier delivery shift. I didn't care how cold the night air was biting at my face or how late it was. I just rode, the city lights blurring past. 15 minutes later, a lifetime later, I pulled up to her place. The lights were off, except for the dim glow of the porch light. I walked up, knocked softly. The door creaked open, and there she was, Olivia stood there in an oversized hoodie that swamped her small frame, her usually vibrant hair a messy tangle, her eyes red, swollen, and utterly desolate. Her face looked like it had been ravaged by tears for hours. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at me as if she'd forgotten how to form words, as if seeing me there was both a shock and the only thing she'd been praying for. And then she whispered it, the words that would echo in my mind for years. I have no one else. I swear those 4 words hit me with more force than anything in my life ever had. I didn't say a word. I just stepped inside and pulled her into a hug tight. Like I was trying to physically hold all her broken pieces together, she melted against me, trembling violently, crying harder now, the kind of deep, racking sobs that make your own chest ache just to hear them. I held her and kicked the door closed behind us. I didn't ask questions, not yet. I just let her cry, let her anchor herself to me. Because whatever this was, whatever unspeakable thing had happened, she needed me, and I was there. I don't know how long we stood there in her small entryway, her small frame shaking in my arms, her hands clutching the back of my hoodie as if she were afraid I'd vanish if she loosened her grip. I just held her, stroking her hair, murmuring nonsensical reassurances. Anything to offer a sliver of comfort in what was clearly an abyss of pain. Words felt hollow, inadequate. Eventually, her sobs began to subside into shuddering breaths. I gently guided her to the couch. She didn't resist. Moving almost like a sleepwalker, she curled her legs under herself, a small, hunched figure. I grabbed the faded quilt draped over the armrest and wrapped it around her shoulders. She didn't look at me, just stared straight ahead, her face pale and exhausted, her hands trembling in her lap. I sat beside her, not too close to crowd her, but not so far that she'd feel alone again. Close enough. "Olivia," I said quietly, my voice softer than I intended. "Can you tell me what happened?" Her lips parted, but for a long moment, nothing came out. Then she blinked, a slow, deliberate movement, as if trying to focus through a thick fog. Her voice, when it finally came, was barely above a whisper, raspy from crying. "My parents," she said, the words themselves seeming to cause her physical pain. "There was an accident." I didn't move, didn't breathe. She took a deep, shuddering breath, her eyes filling with fresh tears. "They were driving back from the cabin. Some guy, drunk driver, he ran a red light. They died instantly. Both of them." My heart plummeted, a stone dropping into an icy void. I didn't know her parents well. They lived in another state, up near Spokane. But I remembered her talking about them all the time, her voice filled with affection. Her mom, who always sent her homemade cookies and care packages during college, packed with little notes of encouragement. Her dad, who still called her kiddo even when she was in her 20s, who taught her how to change a tire and check her oil. They were woven into the fabric of her, part of every story, every memory she shared. And now, just like that, they were gone. She looked at me then, and for a terrifying second, I saw an emptiness in her eyes that scared the hell out of me. A void so profound it felt like part of her very soul had been ripped away. "I don't know what to do, Ethan," she choked out. "I can't even think." I didn't even answer the call when it first came. It went to voicemail. I waited like an hour to listen to it. I don't know why. Maybe I knew. I reached out, my hand covering hers, my own trembling slightly. "Olivia, I'm so sorry." She nodded, a barely perceptible movement, her gaze still fixed on some distant, unseen point on the wall. I was gonna call my aunt, she said, her voice flat. Or someone, but then I realized there's no one I actually want to talk to. Except you. That admission, so raw and vulnerable, hit me harder than I expected. We sat there in a heavy silence for a long time. She leaned against the couch, her eyes heavy with exhaustion and grief. And I just stayed there beside her, holding her hand, a silent, steadfast presence. At one point, much later, she asked, her voice thick with unshed tears, if I could stay the night. Not in a weird way, she quickly added, her face crumpling a little more. She just didn't want to be alone in the silence of her apartment. Of course, I said yes. I didn't even think about going home for clothes or anything. I just found a spare pillow and a blanket in her hall closet and made a bed for myself on the floor beside the couch. She didn't sleep much that night. I could tell from her restless movements, the quiet, muffled sounds. I didn't sleep much either. I kept listening, just in case she needed something, an ear, a glass of water, anything, but she never asked. In the morning, the gray light filtering through the blinds felt harsh and unforgiving. I made coffee. She didn't drink it, barely touched the toast I made. While she took a long shower, I tidied up her small apartment a little, folded some laundry that was draped over a chair, made sure the lights were on. I didn't want her sitting in the dark. When she came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a large towel, she looked like a ghost, pale and fragile. She sat on the edge of her bed and just stared at her hands. "You don't have to stay, Ethan," she said softly, her voice devoid of inflection. "I know," I replied, my voice equally quiet, "but I want to." She looked at me then, really looked at me, a flicker of something unreadable in her swollen eyes. And she nodded, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. I helped her make the necessary phone calls, arranged her flight back to her hometown. She wanted to go alone, said she needed to face it by herself. I didn't argue. I just told her I'd be here when she got back. She hugged me before leaving for the airport, a hug tighter than any she'd ever given me. No words, just a long, silent, clinging embrace at the door. And then she was gone. The next few days were quiet, heavy. I kept my phone close, obsessively checking for messages. I worked a few shifts, tried to stay distracted, but everything felt muted, off-kilter. My small apartment felt colder, emptier. Food tasted bland. I couldn't stop thinking about her, alone, navigating the horrific landscape of grief, identifying her parents, dealing with the funeral arrangements, meeting relatives she hadn't seen in years, people who were likely strangers to her pain. She texted me once from the airport, landed, and again 2 days later, "Funeral's tomorrow." That was it. Short, stark messages. No emojis, no unnecessary words. Just raw, stripped-down communication. And I hated how utterly helpless I felt. I couldn't fix it. Couldn't shield her from it. All I could do was wait and be ready. When a friend's world shatters, sometimes the only thing to offer is unwavering presence. How do you think shared grief can change the dynamic of a friendship? If you've ever been that person for someone, or had someone be that for you, share your story in the comments. Your insights are valued here at Hidden Love Stories. She came back 5 days later. I'd offered to pick her up from the airport, but she declined. She just showed up at my apartment one evening, unannounced, looking pale and utterly worn out, still in the dark, simple dress she must have worn to the funeral, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. "I didn't want to be at my place," she said, her voice flat. I wanted to see you." I let her in without a word. She dropped the bag by the door and sank onto my old couch, pulling the familiar throw blanket around her again. I didn't press her to talk. I just sat next to her, and we watched TV, some mindless sitcom, not because either of us was paying attention, but for the background noise, a flimsy shield against the overwhelming silence, just to feel a flicker of normalcy for a second. Eventually, she fell asleep, leaning against my shoulder. I didn't move for hours, my arm going numb, not wanting to disturb the fragile peace she'd found. It's strange how quickly life can pivot. One day you're delivering packages, complaining about gas prices, and the next you're in someone's living room, a silent sentinel, trying to make coffee for a friend who can barely speak, whose entire world has been upended. Olivia came back from her parents' funeral a different person. The vibrant spark in her eyes was dimmed, her easy laughter silenced. She moved quieter, spoke softer, ate less. I didn't expect her to be okay, didn't try to push her. I just made it my mission to show up. Every single day. Sometimes I brought coffee, sometimes groceries. One time, I remembered a specific brand of mini donuts she used to love back in college, the ones with the obnoxious pink sprinkles, and I brought over a bag. She actually smiled then, the first real smile I'd seen in days, small, tired, but undeniably real. That tiny upturn of her lips was enough to keep me going for another week. I stopped taking delivery shifts on weekends, didn't tell her I was sacrificing income. I just started spending Saturdays and Sundays with her. We didn't do anything monumental. Slow walks around the neighborhood, sitting on the floor of her living room, sorting through boxes of old photos she'd brought back from her parents' house, a task that seemed both heartbreaking and necessary. One afternoon, she pulled out a shoebox filled with Polaroids and letters her mom used to write her on birthdays. She sat on the carpet, legs crossed, reading through them, her eyes red but no longer streaming. I sat beside her, a silent companion, just being there. I didn't need to say anything. That day, for the first time since she'd returned, she leaned her head on my shoulder as she read, and I felt something almost imperceptible shift between us, a new layer of trust, of reliance. She was healing, slowly, piece by painstaking piece. She started texting again, not with her old frequency, but little things, a funny tweet, a photo of her cat tangled in a plant, a random question about which cereal brand was objectively better. It felt like the first tentative signs of spring after the longest, coldest winter imaginable. We started going out more. The first time was a late-night grocery run. I'd asked if she wanted company, and she'd said, "Sure." That "sure" felt like a victory. We walked through the fluorescent-lit aisles of the 24-hour supermarket with a cart half full of snacks and things she probably didn't need. She wore a hoodie and no makeup, looking tired but undeniably better. We got ice cream on the way back, ate it sitting on the curb outside my building like we were 18 again, the city quiet around us. "You're getting better," I told her. She didn't respond right away, just looked up at the few stars visible through the city glow. "I still feel like I'm underwater most days," she confessed. I nodded. "Yeah, but now at least you're swimming." She actually laughed then, a quiet, surprised kind of laugh that warmed me more than the cheap ice cream. We stayed out there for almost an hour, just talking about nothing important. It became a new routine, not daily, but often. We'd get food, watch movies at my place. She'd fall asleep on the couch, and I'd let her, covering her with a blanket, sometimes watching her for a while before I retreated to my own bed. I started cooking for her more often. I'm no chef, but I can manage tacos and a decent pasta. She even started teasing me again about my overuse of garlic. One night, I invited her to a drive-in movie, an old classic playing in a makeshift lot downtown. She hesitated. Big crowds still made her nervous. But she said yes. We sat in my beat-up car, windows down, eating popcorn I'd brought from home. At some point, she took my hoodie and put it on without asking, something she'd done a million times back in college. But now it felt different, imbued with a new, unspoken significance. She was smiling more, sleeping more, talking more. It was working, whatever it was. And the thing is, I wasn't doing any of this to win her over, to reignite that old spark. That part of me, the part that used to ache for her to look at me as more than just a friend, I'd buried that years ago. Or so I thought. I just wanted her to be okay. That truly was it. But maybe, just maybe, she noticed something more. One night, I came over with takeout, and she was already waiting for me outside her apartment, actually dressed up. Hair done, light makeup, a dress I hadn't seen her wear in years. "You got plans tonight?" I joked. "Yeah," she said, a small smile playing on her lips. "With you." That night, we sat on her small balcony, eating noodles out of takeout boxes, talking about our worst high school memories. She laughed so hard she cried, real tears of mirth this time. And then, just as I was about to leave, she said, "I don't know where I'd be right now if it weren't for you, Ethan." I smiled. "You don't have to thank me. I'm not thanking you," she said, her gaze direct. "I'm just telling you the truth." I stood there for a second, unsure what to say, but then she hugged me, a long, lingering hug. No rush, no words, and I realized with a jolt that I wasn't just the friend in the background anymore. I was something steady, something real in her life. Some people left when life got too dark. I stayed. The evening it truly happened, the evening the unspoken became spoken, wasn't anything special, or so it seemed at the time. We were at my place, I'd made chili, and we were on the couch, a movie we'd both seen before playing in the background. Forgetting Sarah Marshall, I think. Neither of us was really watching, just hanging out, like always. Olivia had her feet tucked under a blanket, holding a mug of tea, leaning slightly toward me. I was stretched out on the other end, scrolling through my phone. Comfortable quiet. Then, in the middle of a scene, she muted the TV. I looked over. She was staring at me, not casually. It was this direct, focused look, like she'd made a decision. She sat up straighter. "Can I ask you something?" "Yeah," I replied, setting my phone down. "Did it hurt?" That caught me completely off guard. "Did what hurt?" She hesitated, then, "Liking me, back then." Me never feeling the same. I blinked, my mind scrambling. It felt like she'd just ripped a page out of a book I thought we'd both agreed to leave permanently closed. I cleared my throat. "Yeah," I admitted, the old ache surprisingly accessible. "It did, for a while." She nodded, as if she already knew. "I knew it," she said softly. "I knew it, and I still let you stay in that zone." "I used you, not on purpose, but still." I shook my head. "You didn't use me, Olivia." "I stayed because I wanted to. No one made me." "But I knew you liked me," she persisted. "And I kept telling you things about other guys I was dating. I remember this one night telling you about that guy from the gym who ghosted me, and you just sat there, nodding. I should have known how unfair that was." "You were just living your life," I said. "I was the one hoping for more. That wasn't your fault." She didn't answer right away. Then she said something that stuck with me, lodged itself deep in my heart. "I didn't see you then, Ethan. Not really. But I see you now." And I hate that it took losing everything else in my life to finally realize what I've always had. My chest tightened, a slow, deep pressure, like something incredibly important was unfolding, something that couldn't be rushed. She looked at me, her eyes clear, steady, honest. No tears, just raw truth. I know I probably don't deserve it, she continued, and I'm not asking for anything. I needed to say it. I'm sorry, and that I see you now. I could have made a joke, deflected, but I didn't. I just said what I felt, the simplest, truest thing. I never stopped seeing you, Olivia. And then she kissed me. It wasn't intense or desperate. It was soft, intentional, a kiss between two people who knew each other's histories, flaws, and quiet strengths. A kiss that whispered, "We've been here this whole time, haven't we?" When she pulled away, she smiled, this tiny, nervous smile, like she wasn't sure if I'd regret it in the morning. I didn't. That night, we just curled up on the couch. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I held her hand, and we watched the rest of the movie, this time actually watching. From that point, something shifted definitively. We started doing things as us, unlabeled, unofficial on Instagram, but we both knew. A new rhythm, a softness in how we spoke, a comfort in shared silence, a warmth when she reached for my hand. She started leaving things at my place, a toothbrush, socks, hair ties on doorknobs. I'd wake up some mornings to find her still asleep on my couch, sunlight on her face, and I'd think, how did we ever not end up here sooner? One day, folding laundry, her clothes mixed with mine, she said, "You ever think about what this would have looked like if we figured things out earlier?" I shrugged. "Maybe we weren't ready," she smiled. "Maybe we are now." That night, she stayed over, not because she was hurting or scared, but because she wanted to. We cooked, slow danced in the kitchen, and fell asleep in the same bed. Not as friends, not as broken people trying to fix each other, just as two people who had finally come home. Deep down, I knew this wasn't a rebound or a phase, it was real. Solid. She didn't say "I love you" yet, neither did I. But it was there, in the way she'd rest her hand on my chest, the way I'd run my fingers through her hair. I remember the morning it all felt unequivocally solid. Early, sun not yet up. Olivia asleep beside me, curled on her side, one arm under the pillow, the other on my chest. The apartment quiet, save for the fridge hum and her slow breathing. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, thinking, this is it. Not an "I've made it" kind of way, but this is what it feels like when something broken gets gently, patiently put back together. A few months had passed. Olivia wasn't grieving the same way. Hard days still came. I'd find her holding her mom's necklace, eyes distant. But she didn't drown. She saw a therapist, took night classes, cooked again, badly but proudly. And I stayed steady. Because I wanted to be there, because she wanted me there. We officially moved in together a couple of weeks after that quiet morning. She just looked at me while folding laundry. "I think I want to stay here." "I already live here half the time anyway." "Then don't leave," I said. She didn't. We cleared a second dresser drawer, bought a new mattress, fixed the crooked curtain rod. Not glamorous, but real hours. Then one evening, 6 months later, walking home from a late dinner at a cheap diner, the air cool, her hands tucked into my hoodie sleeves, she stopped, looked at me. "I want to marry you." Just like that. No setup, no ring, pure truth. I stared, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. She stepped closer. "I know we've had a weird story. I know I took way too long to see what was right in front of me, but I know now, and if you'll have me, I want to build a life with you." I didn't need a second. "Yeah," I said, "let's do it." We got married the following spring. Small ceremony, her aunt's backyard, friends, Bluetooth speaker, homemade cupcakes. White sundress for her, a button-up for me that barely fit. She cried during her vows. I forgot half of mine. Improvised. Perfect. 3 years later, a little house with chipped paint, a lawn we forget to mow. 2 years after that, our first daughter. Then a son. And now, I'm 53, hair graying, back cracks, still can't fold a fitted sheet. But every now and then, quiet nights, kids asleep, dishwasher humming, I look at her across the couch and think about that night she called. Voice broken, please come over. The night she opened the door in tears, whispered, I have no one else. That night changed everything. It didn't lead to a fairy tale. Life's still hard. Bills, fights, sick kids, burnt dinners. But it led to a life built from something stronger than luck. It led to love that was earned. And when I tell people how we met, I always end the same. She thought she had no one else, but she had me. And she always will. A devastating loss, a friend's unwavering support, and a love story that took years to be seen. What are your thoughts on Ethan and Olivia's journey from friendship to lifelong partnership? Share your reflections with us. If their story of earned love and resilience touched you, please subscribe to Hidden Love Stories and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you for joining us.